Okay.
And today we're here back to finish out the week with 114 of the Lost World. Just quickly, it's been a bit dry on the toy front. I've picked up a couple more Matchbox cars in increasing my G-Wagon troop or fleet, and the Textron, the green Textron tracker as well. So I've been getting a couple more of them, and I found the Stiggy Moloch yesterday as well. So that's been added to the toys. And I've still got that Mosasaur and Indoraptor still incoming, so they'll probably be here to talk about next week. Dave, anything on your front collecting wise?
No, I've been saving my money. Actually, no. I just remembered. So this week I had a car payment. I had to renew my field membership for the Field Museum in Chicago.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I was too late to renew my compy. They already sold out.
Oh no.
So that is unfortunate. But I used the credit that I had paid for that I already had with Chronicle to start a payment plan on number 4, Explorer.
Oh wow.
Number 4. So I'm going with the Iron Studios Explorer. I'm getting it. They do come individually. I checked with Chronicle. So yeah, I started that. I got like my first 3 months payments out of the way already, I guess.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
I know.
Careful. This suit costs more than your education.
It's so important to your future that you not finish that sentence, please.
All right, ready to get into minute 114.
Sure.
As we entered minute 113 into the Lost World, the mail had returned to the hold, and Ludlow was trying to escape out the one way that he'd come in. As minute 114 opens, Ludlow bolts up the stairs, but before he can get halfway up, the mail swings its head around and knocks him over. It grabs him by the leg, and we hear a bone-shattering crunch, and picks Ludlow up and carries him back into the middle of the hole and drops him on the ground. At the 10-second mark, he climbs up onto his good foot and starts to hop away from the Tyrannosaur, but it lunges forward, knocking him over again. At the 18-second mark, after getting a nod of approval from its father, the baby lunges onto Ludlow's back, and he screams. At the 24-second mark, we cut back outside to the dock area, as a helicopter flies overhead, and several police cars race onto the scene. Sarah climbs onto the boat, tranquilizer rifle in hand. At the 36-second mark, Ian also comes onto the boat and runs around the back of the destroyed Tyrannosaur cage to the controls for the cargo bay doors. He looks at the controls briefly and pushes the big red button to close the doors. The electric motors whirl and the big cargo bay doors begin to close. At the 47-second mark, the Tyrannosaur roars as the doors start to close, but then its attention goes back onto the infant inside. 51-second mark, Sarah emerges from the bridge and readies the tranquilizer rifle, and as the minute ends, she chambers a dart and prepares to fire. As we end the last minute, the male returned to the hold, and although being that last act of desperation, tried to make a dash for the stairs, but the male's right there and swings his head around and knocks him over and grabs him by the leg, and he sort of screams as we hear that bone-crunching crunch.
Which is interesting because the Stan Winston studio appears to have removed the teeth out of the animatronic of the T-Rex, so it's only got like its front, like the first 4 rows of teeth. Everything else has been removed, and so it's really more like a gumming effect going on, I guess.
Well, they done the same thing when they pulled Burke out of the waterfall too, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I don't know, because they had a body harness on the actor at that time, so it was more like the stunt actor was strapped to the mouth, not necessarily inside of it.
Yeah. But the male pulls him off the stairs and drops him back down onto the floor, or onto the dinner table, as it would. And he sort of gets straight up. He doesn't spend much time on the ground, even with the pain he's got from that chomped leg, but he sort of gets straight up and starts hopping along on his good leg, and the male pushes him forward again, knocking him over. And the baby sort of runs up behind him and takes a look back at Daddy, looking for his acceptance, and
Daddy accepts.
Yeah, that he accepts. And he lunges onto Ludlow.
For some reason, I mean, they say that Star Wars, the first Star Wars trilogy, are movies of fathers and sons. I really feel like this moment, like not just the movie in general, but especially this moment is a moment of father and son. You know, because I remember a lot of times, because my dad was a union operating engineer growing up. He's retired now, but a lot of times, especially when the economy hit hard around 2005 and 2008, he was getting laid off. So a lot of times, me and him would just sit around and watch movies on days that he was off. Lost World being one of them, of course, Indiana Jones being others. And I remember this scene was really more like father-son tag team, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's perfect, just that look. The baby sort of looks back at the father and the male, and he sort of does that knowing that forward head nod to say, "Go for it, son."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, jumps onto his back and attacks, and all we can hear is Ludlow screaming, which is sort of reminiscent again too of sort of Muldoon's death, just a raptor leaping out on the Muldoon, just sort of gouging and eating his face off.
Yeah, actually, I'd say that the connection is definitely there.
Mm. We cut back outside as the helicopters start approaching the ship. There's a dozen police cars sort of race onto the dock area, and Sarah climbs the ladder and back on the ship with the tranquilizer rifle in hand. It's one of those things in the background as she comes up, and it's in a couple of earlier scenes as well. There's a big Southwest Marine printed on the side of one of the warehouses. I just thought I'd do some Googling to see what I found, and found it actually a real spot in LA, a former shipbuilding yard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's actually in San Pedro, California. So
where is that exactly? I'm not familiar.
I didn't zoom out. I was looking at all the close stuff, but I didn't actually zoom out to see whereabouts in LA it is. But I've got it bookmarked here. No, the link's gone. It's at the LA waterfront. It's one of the last examples of the once great LA sort of like the shipbuilding yards that they had there.
I see.
And it's also during World War II it was at peak production. It was pumping out 40 destroyers. They were built for the war, and 6,000 people were working there, and they're also known for their incredible building and repair speed, sometimes getting 2 ships a day repaired and back out into the war from either torpedo damage or all that sort of stuff. So they had a lot of people there and a lot of...
Yeah, on the Pacific side?
Yep. And it's sort of one of those things, like we haven't really looked this hard into a set location like since the girls' school back at the start for Hammond's mansion, but I was just surprised it's still there today. There's two of the dry docks where the ships were made. They're actually dredging the channel that runs alongside where the Venture would have been parked. They're using all that sand they're dredging out of the channel. They're actually putting into those sea docks to fill them in. So a lot of the stuff's been demolished. There's only a couple of the main warehouses there. One of which I reckon's Eddie's garage and warehouse.
Really?
Because you can see the roller door on one end. You can see the train tracks going into it, much the same where Nick reverses into it. The windows match, and it's sort of the next warehouse over from what we see behind Sarah here in the front of the Venture and the InGen waterfront complex. But sort of some of the other stuff that it's a known filming location too in LA, where a lot of TV series, 24, the original CSI, Entourage, have all filmed there. Spider-Man, Charlie's Angels, the 4th Die Hard movie was filmed, had some scenes there as well. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So I was sort of trying to look some of the stuff filmed there to see if anything was filmed around 97, 96. Just out of that hope to see an InGen logo on a container or something in the background, but that was no good. But yeah, I've got some images there, so I'll post up on the page when this episode goes live. But
I agree.
It's just sort of, it's great because in the background, it's sort of when we first get to the waterfront complex, we see the limos pull up and you got that big blue illuminated InGen logo or sign on the, what I always thought was a wall for an office, or it's sort of like an office building. But when Ian sort of runs up on the boat here in a minute, you can see clearly it's just 2 containers stacked on top of each other with the InGen sign on it. So it's not even attached to a building or a warehouse. Yeah, but Ian sort of runs around, comes up on the boat shortly after Sarah and runs around the destroyed Rex cage towards the cargo bay door controls, and he inspects them and sees that big red button with close written under it and pushes down hard on it.
So would you say she pushed to close?
Push to close, push to close, push it. And we get the that whirling sound of the doors coming to life as they begin to close, and sort of the male's there off his back. It's an odd shot here because the tail, you can see his back and his head, but you know that ramp's there, so the tail should nearly be sticking up as well, but it's tucked away in the hold, and he sort of roars at the doors as they close, but turns his attention back to the baby.
Yeah, I kind of imagine he's doing the end scene of Jurassic Park kind of pose here, where the tail is wrapped around to the side, and he's raised his body up to stick his head out of the... And I think it's funny how kind of protective he is in this. In the whole movie, we've kind of had this theme of the parents protecting the baby T-Rex. And here we see the T-Rex actually kind of just roaring at the helicopters like they're just nuisances. All he wants to be is left alone with his baby, you know?
Yep. And you could probably go a step further to say that he's like he put himself between the baby and the open cargo bay too.
Definitely,
so, yeah.
No, it's funny that you did mention those big cranes, though, because in speaking of the T-Rex, the male T-Rex being caged here, in one of the concept arts of the T-Rex being offloaded onto the San Diego dock, there's these giant dock cranes here that just go off far into the distance and into the night, and it's a really, really cool piece of concept art. I'm not sure if I posted it already. I'll check. If I haven't, I'll definitely post it again. Might just post it again anyway because I love it. And it's got this great kind of theme of King Kong here, where if you've seen the 1993 version of King Kong, where that Spielberg loves and based the entire San Diego sequence off of, it's Jack Denham's quote when he's unveiling Kong. He was a king in the world he knew, but now he comes to civilization as merely a captive, a show to gratify your curiosity. And it harkens exactly to this concept art. I mean, I think I captioned it, and I think that's the image I posted was the caption I made of the quote over the image, because the quote works so perfectly with the imagery.
Yeah, and it's sort of great too. Like even talk about the cranes, looking at the photos of that dock, that port there and that now. Even though most of the warehouses have been demolished, the dockside cranes are still there, and one of them's still painted red. But we see Ian and Sarah run past carrying the baby when Ludlow's on the phone. Like they run past that same crane, it's still there. Like we've talked before about how great it is that like some of these locations are real locations where you can visit and sort of do all that. But it's just here, and they've obviously put their that wooden dock onto the side of the main wharf there, so they could have the Venture parked in it. But yeah, as the minute ends, Sarah emerges from the bridge up on top of the ship and pulls the breech open and closes it with a dart. Same sort of almost a shot for shot of what we've seen with Roland earlier, where he's got it in his mouth and opens the rifle up, puts the dart in and closes it. So she's going to show her marksmanship skills next minute. But briefly on the shooting script, much the same here. So the male doesn't actually go into the hole. It sort of just lowers its head in and knocks Ludlow over, and the adult sort of then nods for the baby to go towards Ludlow as he's lying on the ground, and the male knocks him over. He tries to get to his feet and he's knocked over again a bit harder, and as he's crawling away, the male bites the leg, snapping it, as we see in the film. And yeah, the baby sort of runs over and leaps onto Ludlow's back, and he screams. And outside, it's a little bit different here. Outside, Ian and Sarah crawl out onto the beach or out of the ocean. They can see half a dozen helicopters now buzzing over the ship overhead, shine their lights down, and sort of Malcolm mouths, "Oh God!" And above them, one of the helicopter doors slides open, and a rifleman appears, taking aim at the Rex. Malcolm sort of continues, they're going to kill it, and Sarah looks around frantically and sees the ruined Rex cage that we've seen, or you were told about earlier, with Ludlow sort of given the thing about we had these tranquilizer guns here to shoot it, which was changed out for the engine worker in the film, but she sees the rifle still sitting there on the ground from earlier and runs over and grabs it. So the T-Rex, the male, roars up at the choppers as the rifleman prepares to fire. Yeah, next week we'll get the end of the shooting script as well, as this film's just about over. A couple of minutes to go. If that's all for today, Dave, we'll get out of here for the week.
I just find it interesting how more explicit they are in the shooting script, and that because in the final movie, you see the Rex pressed down on Ludlow, and you hear the crunch, and you kind of imagine, okay, what got broken? Something must have got broken. But in the script, they say explicitly his leg is broken. You know, so I think it would have been interesting if they had done like possibly a not just a shot, but like you could see behind Ludlow part of the bone sticking up out of his pant leg.
Even just soggy. His trousers are soggy with blood or something.
Or something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's sort of one. I've never broken a bone, so I can't even begin to sort of say how painful it is or isn't. But even when it sort of bites his leg, drops him on the floor, and he's sort of straight back to his feet to sort of limp away, like he's not trained like military or anything, so his pain threshold, he'd probably cry if he got a splinter. You'd think so. Even some people, when they get a pain that severe and they're not used to, they'll faint and again it's that fight or flight. Like he's just been bitten by a T-Rex. He's got to move. He can't stay there. But sometimes your body's not going to really agree with what your mind's trying to do, and they're both screaming at each other to do something. But that's sort of one of the things. Like he gets up and starts hopping away here, and there's no there isn't really even a tooth mark in his pant leg. Like it's a shame they didn't do that.
Well, like I said at the beginning of the minute, they took the teeth out, so he was really more gummed. It was for the safety of the actor, you know.
Yeah, and that's why Stan Winston told Richard Schiff not to punch the Rex here or here in the teeth because they'll fall out, because they need them couple of teeth to fall out so they can reset for another shoot. But all right, done.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, guys, let's get the hell out of here.
Contact details are on the website, thelostworldminute.com. You can email feedback to thelostworldminute@gmail.com, Facebook, The Lost World Minute, Twitter @thelostworldminute, and Instagram, The Lost World Minute.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, very easy to remember. David, thank you for joining me for this record.
Welcome.
And we'll be back. I've been Brad.
I'm Dave.
And we'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
It is absolutely imperative that we work with the Costa Rican Department of Biological Preserves to establish a set of rules for the preservation and isolation of that island. These creatures require our absence to survive, not our help. And if we could only step aside and trust in nature, life will find a way.